Hello everyone, it's Thursday, May 28th. I'm Stephanie Haney. This is your 3 News Now afternoon update with the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We were close to Friday this morning, and we are even closer to Friday now that we are in the afternoon stretch of things. We've got lots of different topics of conversation to cover today. We will dive right in. First, we will start with the new numbers from the Ohio Department of Health. We get those each day at 2 p.m. So we do have those most updated COVID-19 numbers in right now. To give you a breakdown of what that's going to look like, the number of cases and the number of deaths newly reported today in Ohio are both up today. This is compared to the U.S., where new cases and new deaths are slightly down across the country, but there has been a huge jump in worldwide new cases and worldwide deaths. So we'll break those numbers down for you right now. The total number of cases now reported in the state of Ohio, dating all the way back to March 9th, is now 33,915 cases of COVID-19. Today, there have been 476 new cases reported. That's up from yesterday when we had a drop and there were 433 new cases reported. So we are back to zero in terms of days where we are looking for consecutive declines in those new daily reported numbers. And the reason that we look at these numbers, again, just to remind you, is we're looking for a downward trend. Medical experts have said that we need to see 14 days of consecutive downward trend in order to open things up on a wider scale. That's what's being recommended. So we are not there yet. In terms of the number of deaths in Ohio, we are now at 2,098. That's after breaking that 2,000 point this week. We saw 54 new deaths reported today, and that is up from 42 new deaths reported yesterday and 15 new deaths reported on Tuesday. So we have been coming up since Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have saw an increase in the new number of daily reported deaths each of those days here in Ohio. Here is where we are down just slightly. The total number of the new number of hospitalizations reported, and also the new number of ICU admissions reported. Today we saw 111 new hospitalizations, bringing that grand total to 5,811. And today we saw 24 new ICU admissions reported, bringing that grand total to 1,516 here in the state of Ohio. Across the U.S., as we talked about this morning, the U.S. has surpassed the number of 100,000 deaths. That happened yesterday in the late afternoon. Yesterday, and from yesterday to today, we have now seen 9,581 new reported cases, bringing the total number of cases in the U.S. to just over 1,709,000. In terms of the total number of deaths in the U.S., we saw 1,197 new reported deaths from yesterday at 2 p.m. to today at 2 p.m., bringing that total now to 100,871 deaths in the U.S. related to COVID-19. Worldwide, huge jumps in the total number of cases reported in the last 24 hours and the total number of deaths reported in the last 24 hours. And these U.S. and worldwide numbers, by the way, come from Johns Hopkins University. So in the last 24 hours, globally, there have been 285,103 new reported cases of COVID-19. That brings the global total to about 5,925,000 COVID-19 cases. And in the last 24 hours, we have seen 10,503 new deaths reported. That's up from 4,838 new deaths reported the day before, which was a big jump from the day before that, when there were 1,543 new deaths reported on Tuesday. So now the total number of deaths globally is reported as 363,177 related to COVID-19. Here in the U.S., Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is weighing in on Twitter, deciding to fact-check things in general, but specifically President Donald Trump, because that's what's brought this topic of conversation to light. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey responded to his comments, saying that Twitter is not the arbiter of fact, but but what they're trying to do is connect the dots of conflicting statements and show information in dispute so that people can judge for themselves. So if you're following this, President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order today. And what his hope is with this executive order is that he can start the process to take away liability protection for social media companies. Now, this is based on the idea that internet sites are not responsible for what other people post on them, as long as they don't take an active role in moderating what people post. This comes after Trump was upset with Twitter for adding a warning phrase to 2 of his tweets. The tweets of President Donald Trump's called mail-in ballots fraudulent and predicted mailboxes will be robbed when talking about mail-in voting. So under the tweets, there is now a link that says get the facts about mail-in ballots, and that guides users to a page with fact checks and news stories about voting by mail. In the middle of all this, Trump claimed in a tweet that social media is working to, quote, totally silence conservative voices. Now, legally speaking, there's a big difference between censorship, which would be removing content, and adding context or information to content that is posted on your platform without editing that original post in any way, without removing that original post or blocking people from accessing it. So that is kind of the very definition of creating a marketplace of ideas, which is what the First Amendment is designed to protect, constitutionally speaking. Mark Zuckerberg, however, said that social media platforms should not be the arbiters or the deciders of fact. But then he also said during a Fox News interview on Wednesday that government action against social media platforms for alleged censorship would have negative impacts. He said, in general, that he thinks a government choosing to censor a platform because they're worried about censorship doesn't exactly strike him as the right reflex. Facebook has taken a different approach. What they do is they have guidelines, they have community guidelines that restrict things like posts that cause violence, harm to people, or misinformation that can cause voter suppression. Another topic of conversation that has been a major point of conversation across the entire country is the death of George Floyd, who died after video showed a Minneapolis police officer with a knee on his neck when he was repeatedly telling that officer that he could not breathe. So in Minneapolis, multiple fires are being linked to protests over the death of George Floyd, who was an unarmed black man at the time of his death. The Minneapolis Fire Department says that 911 logs show engines responded to approximately 30 fires throughout these protest periods. And while responding, there were rocks and other objects thrown at those first responders. There have also been reports of looting and property damage that started as early as Wednesday night. A spokesperson for Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey confirms that the mayor has requested the assistance of the National Guard to regain control of the situation. Earlier on Wednesday as well, Police Chief Arredondo urged people who are observing in protests to do so with safety in mind. The officers, 4 officers who were involved in the death of George Floyd, have been fired, but people are saying that that is not enough, including the sister of Floyd, who says that murder charges should be brought. Now, there will be an investigation into this as well, and after that investigation is complete, at that point, that's probably when it will be decided whether there will be any charges brought. So we'll be following this, of course, throughout all of that. Here is something to keep in mind if you are a basketball fan in Northeast Ohio. The Cavs season is probably over. That's according to multiple NBA proposals. So the NBA does seem to be gaining momentum to potentially return, but if it does return, it doesn't look like the Cleveland Cavaliers will be a part of that. So over the past couple weeks, there have been multiple different proposals for the NBA's return, and those games would likely take place in Orlando, Florida, possibly in late July. But the Cavs have the second worst record in the league right now with 19 wins and 46 losses. So they likely would not be included in that returning season because they are not a part of the possible proposals that seem to be gaining the most traction for the NBA. Now, if the NBA does return in July, it could possibly jump right into the postseason, but it might not look like a traditional 16-team NBA playoff like we're used to seeing. But no matter what happens, unfortunately, it does not look like right now the Cavs will be a part of that situation. Here's some good news, though, Here's some good news to end things on the right note. Our 3 News Jimmy Donovan has won WKNR's GOAT tournament. very deservingly so. This was a 64-person tournament to be named the greatest of all time of WKNR 850 ESPN Cleveland. So, of course, in addition to being the head of our sports team here at 3 News, Jimmy Donovan has been the voice of the Browns as the team's radio play-by-play announcer since the team came back to us in 1999 after they were so rudely sold out from under us to the Baltimore Ravens, and we took years without a team, and then we got him back in 99. So Jimmy has been the voice of the Browns since that time, and he makes regular appearances on several shows on 850 WKNR, as well as guest hosting Cleveland Browns Daily. So he entered the March Madness style tournament as the number 1 seed, of course. He beat out Jordan Zerm, Jimmy Hanlon, and Matt Fontana, and lots of other big names in Cleveland sports to be named the GOAT of WKNR. We are so proud of you, Jimmy. Congratulations, deservingly so. We could not have imagined this ending any other way. So give Jimmy a shout out. You can find him on Twitter and let him know how happy you are for being named the GOAT of WKNR. That's it for our 3 News Now afternoon update. I'll see you next up on What's New at 5 p.m. That's on 3 News, also on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. And you can also catch that on YouTube at youtube.com/user/WKYCTV. And then, of course, we'll have more for you at 6 p.m. on What Matters Most, at 7 p.m. on Front Row, and 11 p.m. on What's Next. And I'll be back with you one more morning this week because tomorrow is actually Friday. I will see you back here tomorrow morning bright and early at 11 a.m. Everybody have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you at 5 p.m. on What's New, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 11. I'm Stephanie Haney.